Today for the Bitcoin price with Carl from the Moon, we will not only be talking about the imminent economic and monetary crisis, no, we will take data points, proof and very, very compelling evidence all together and derive from that very surprising and specific price predictions for the Bitcoin price within the next 4 to 5 years. And with that being said, guys, make sure you watch this video all the way through, you smash up the like button, and I want to come to the most important question of today. Carl from the Moon, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited for this content. I think it's going to be crazy.
All right, so let's get straight into it. Carl from the Moon, thank you so much for being here. And of course, guys, very, very important, if you do appreciate this kind of different content and if you want to make us occasionally more of that, make sure you let us know by scrolling down, smashing up the like button to whatever, 3,000, 4,000, 5 trillion likes. Smash the like button right now and we will know you want more of that. And I wanted to know from you, what are your thoughts on the current situation? I can see it in our Telegram groups, on YouTube, in the comments. People are bored, people are leaving the market, some are fearful, some are maybe a little bit greedy, but overall it is getting boring. So what are your thoughts on that and what is your projection here for the immediate short term? Maybe before we go into the crazy economic data and the crazy price prediction, guys, stay here until the end, we have evidence and proof. So Carl, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so just like you're saying, people have been a little bit bored after the halving. It seems like people expected a big price increase from the halving, but of course the halving was never intended to be a big price event. Actually, it was always intended and designed to be not felt by the market. It's actually worked out exactly as expected. No big price swings. But of course, many people anticipated this big bull run after the halving, and this is still going to happen, but it's a long-term thing. It's a long-term effect. So in the short term, I think that we shouldn't expect any bigger dumps or pumps directly as a consequence of the halving, and this is what made maybe the bigger majority a little bit bored, and that's why we're seeing the volume come down, and essentially people are waiting for Bitcoin to choose a direction.
Yeah, and of course we are all bulls inside our heart, and we are all hoping for the direction to be towards the upside. Something else I wanted to refer to is long and short term. In crypto, we are talking long term, about 2 or 3 years. We will come to that later. However, if you look at equity markets, when traditional investors are talking about long term, it's 5 or 10 years or so. I just wanted to urge everyone, just be a little bit more cautious. Of course it is boring right now, but looking back into the history, the big moves, preferably to the upside, were always happening when the historical volatility was going down, the relative volatility was going down, the mentions of Bitcoin on social media were going down, the Google trends, when all of that was going down, that was usually the moment when something crazy is about to happen. So thank you so much for leaving your thoughts here, but I really wanted to talk to you because you are one of the #1 persons to talk to besides DaVinci J15 and a few other ones, especially when it comes to the economics, because this is a topic which certainly goes to my heart as well. And I wanted to talk about not only what the central banks like Federal Reserve, People's Bank of China, ECB, what all of them are doing, but also I wanted to talk about gold, and I wanted to pull all of these data points we are going to talk about today together and derive maybe a crazy price prediction for Bitcoin. The people might not believe right now, but at least if you watch until the end, you will see that it is in the room of possibilities at least. So Carl, let's go over here into the charts, and maybe we start with gold because you have something very, very interesting to mention here about gold.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the gold price is that when we look at this chart, we see the price since the 80s. And it seems like the gold price is doing extremely well for the past 2 decades, and it seems like the gold price is climbing towards its all-time high. But what many people don't understand is that this chart is very, very deceiving and misleading, because the underlying thing we're measuring the gold price against here is the US dollar. And as we all know on this channel is that the US dollar is getting inflated. So when you measure something against something that is getting inflated, then the risk is that the price is misleading, and this is exactly the case. So if we look at this other chart, we can see how if we inflation adjust the chart with the CPI since the 80s, we can see how this chart shows us that the gold price is closer to all-time lows rather than all-time highs. So it's actually the exact opposite, and that shows us how massive the difference is when you adjust for inflation. And most people look at the non-inflation adjusted chart, and this gives us very, very, very bad data, and makes well, everyone's conception and perception of the economy wrong, because it's not only gold, it's also stocks, it's also real estate, it's basically everything. Even when you go buy milk in the grocery store, if you're measuring it against dollars, then it will always be misleading in one way or another. Some assets more than others, but essentially, if we had a gold standard or a Bitcoin standard, we would be able to have much more stable prices over time, because in gold the supply is limited, and in Bitcoin the supply is even completely fixed, absolutely fixed. So I usually tell people that I think that Bitcoin might be the best measurement of value in the world, because it's actually fixed, and unlike anything else, it can never be inflated. So theoretically it could be the best way to measure value. Yeah, so far Bitcoin is still undervalued, and it's not where it's supposed to be. So it's still not a good way to store or to measure value. But I think in the end, when Bitcoin eventually reaches its end goal, then it's possible that Bitcoin might be this new underlying currency, underlying money in the world, from which or to which we can measure other things. The value of other things. I think that's the goal we're going towards, but it's gonna take a long, long time. Maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. We shouldn't be really in a rush. Most people in crypto are very, very impatient, just like we're seeing with the halving, like that we just talked about. But we need to give this some time.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And there we are back at the topic of patience. We need people to be more patient. And especially looking at the CPI, the consumer price index adjusted, inflation adjusted chart of the gold price, you can see that we are basically back at the levels of 1971. So 1 ounce of gold can you buy you the exact same like 40 years ago or 50 years ago. And yeah, for Bitcoin, you say Bitcoin is undervalued right now. If you compare Bitcoin towards gold, of course, gold has a higher history. It has much more reputation overall, but gold has a valuation of 45 to 50 times higher approximately towards Bitcoin. So even though Bitcoin one day will be just something like an inflation hedge, maybe up until that point of time, Bitcoin has a lot of things to keep up with in terms of price. So keep all of what we said right now in mind, because it all goes into the basket of arguments we are having for the specific possibility or one scenario Bitcoin could actually go into within the next 3 to 4 years. Wait here until the end. Before that, I wanted to come a little bit back to the central bank issue here, to the central bank topic. And we all know that central banks out there are printing like crazy. And it's not only the Federal Reserve. It is basically, I just talked about that on my channel recently, and also with Da Vinci. It is 84 central banks all over the world lowering interest rates and printing currency like crazy. So I wanted to talk with you now about the Federal Reserve, representing all the other central banks out there, because it's basically probably all of them copying them, and about very important metrics like the money stock or currency stock, however you want to call it, then also about the total assets in the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and about the velocity of money, the velocity of currency. And maybe from there we go into the specific Bitcoin price prediction. So what is your take on the central bank actions right now? I mean, we had a lot of news here unfolding, and we can see that all of these charts are going basically parabolic here. So Carl, may you share your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that we're seeing a currency printing like we've never seen it before, and this is a consequence of the health of the economic system, and they keep pushing the can down the road by printing currency, because when you print currency, you're not creating any value at all. You're just shifting value around. You're just stealing purchasing power from everyone else out there that have saved up this currency in their bank accounts and in their mattress or whatever. You cannot hide from this inflation if you are in the fiat currency, if you are in dollars or any other of these currencies around the world. And like you said, it's not only the Fed, it's all central banks are doing this. They are seemingly working in collusion, always doing the same thing or very, very similar actions with each other. And I think that it's very, very easy to see that this is a slippery slope towards a monetary crisis at some point in time, and whether it's going to happen tomorrow or in 10 years, it's hard to say, because I mean, people have been anticipating the collapse of the dollar since 1970s when they cut the gold standard, and they can push this can down the road. It's hard to say. Like, it makes sense for it to collapse sooner rather than later, but with any pyramid scheme and any scam, it usually goes on for longer than people expect. And I hope that more and more people realize what's happening, and that they can save themselves from this by buying gold and silver and Bitcoin, because that's a good way to step out of this inflationary disaster. But so far, we're seeing people still dependent on the dollar and all currencies around the world, and people still have a confidence in these people that are controlling the monetary system, or they don't even need to have confidence in them, because they don't even know that they need to have confidence in them. They don't even know that they exist. They just people don't understand what money is. When you ask people what money is, they usually just have a very vague understanding. They pull out a bill from their pocket and say, yeah, this is a $20 bill, it's what I used to pay milk. And that's basically their concept of money.
Yep.
And people don't understand that there are people behind the curtains that are actually able to control the supply and control interest rates and make life-changing decisions for the whole world.
Yep, and that is actually also one of the reasons why we are doing that. Of course, among other reasons, we want to educate the people, and maybe we can play a small role in changing the monetary system. Maybe you can play a small role in changing the monetary system by sharing these videos, whether it's from Carl from the Moon channel. The link is, of course, also in the description and in the pinned comment down below, or whether it's this specific video. If you share it with your friends, you are doing your part also in educating the people on the flaws of the monetary and the financial system. And yeah, maybe we are reaching our goal of Bitcoin getting into the mainstream sooner than later. So thank you so much for sharing all of that here with us. And of course, yeah, keeping all of that in mind, the reckless currency printing, how the Federal Reserve is here, you can look at the balance sheet, is buying infinite amounts potentially of corporate bonds, of government treasuries, and soon to be maybe also stocks. I mean, if the next crash is coming, I can call that with a high degree of certainty they will be starting to buy stocks as well. And this will be the last moment, because think about it. If you look at the Federal Reserve, they print the currency and they buy the stocks of their friends, putting that into their balance sheet, and potentially it is not over until they have all the circulating stocks in their balance sheet. I mean, it's the biggest fraudulent theft scheme in the history of mankind, guys. Please, if you didn't know it so far, wake up. But now, taking all of that into consideration, Carl, let's make this very exciting Bitcoin price prediction and also give some reason behind it. Of course, we are all talking about purchasing power adjusted price targets of 100, 200, maybe 300,000 US dollars. Also looking at the stock to flow model within the next few years. But there's another possibility, especially looking at the huge expansion of the currency supply. If we take that into consideration, and if we take into consideration that it usually, looking into history, takes 12 to 18 months for inflation actually to hit, for inflation to translate into prices. So currency inflation in terms of supply to translate into prices of goods and services. If we are taking all of that into consideration, Carl, what do you think would be like a best case scenario of a Bitcoin prediction within the next 2-3 years, 2023, whatever, something like that?
Yeah, so personally, within the next 2-3 years, I believe that the next big hype cycle top will replicate, or we will see the trend we've already seen before. And essentially, if we just see the Bitcoin price continue to go on this big bull run for 11 years, then I think that one of the most accurate price models that we can see today seems to be the stock to flow ratio model. It has been very, very accurate, and just like Plan B, who is the author of the model, says, it's this co-integration between the stock to flow and the price. And so now, after the halving, the stock to flow actually shows us that Bitcoin is going to at least 100,000 within the next 2 years, according to Plan B. And actually, he's even more bullish. He says that it's going to go even higher, up to $288,000. And I know that many people think that this is that this sounds ludicrous and that this sounds like something completely insane, but this is also what people would have said back in 2015 or so, when Bitcoin was at like $500 or something like that. People did not expect $20,000, and Bitcoin still was able to do that insane bull run to 20,000, and now even more so. We are seeing the central banks doing all of this currency printing, so the fear of more currency printing could drive more people into Bitcoin and gold, which means that not only might we see these price predictions come true, but maybe even higher than that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I would go even higher before I go here into a very crazy scenario. I would say like a small wick, like for example, we hit the 18, 19, 20,000 price levels only for a week. So I could imagine that we are even wicking up to an equivalent of the gold market cap, which would put us approximately at 400,000. However, just according to the stock to flow model, I think that is in the room of possibilities. This model actually predicts that the median price, or like the average price, would be among the lines of 100,000. So of course, we might see a crazy overextension to 400. Then the Bitcoin price crashes down to way below 100,000. And according to the model, within the next 4 years, we would reach 100,000 before the next halving, and Bitcoin gets like a magnet co-integrated towards the upside once again. So I can agree on that. I would go a little bit higher even, but now also taking other things into consideration, and taking into consideration that maybe there's going to be a second lockdown, maybe there's going to be a second massive sell-off in stocks, and the authorities and the central bank, the Federal Reserve people and ECB people see all the stocks of their friends plummeting. Of course, we will see even more currency printing than we are seeing it right now. And it is at least in the room of possibilities, whether it is before after a deflation, or whether we are skipping the deflation, that we can see hyperinflation in the economy when this crazy currency printing even escalates more. And looking at all the third world countries, or even emerging countries, like economies like, I don't know, Venezuela, Argentina, what did you have on your channel? Lebanon, 80% loss in purchasing power of their own currency. And we saw it in third world countries first. Then we are seeing it right now in emerging countries. And of course, potentially, it can happen also to first world countries, USA, Europe, and whatever. In case this happens, everything is possible. This is what I want to tell you guys. Not in terms of purchasing power, but in terms of US dollar denomination, everything is possible. And I truly believe, Carl, and you can just let me know whether yes or not, I truly believe if that happens, keep in mind, not purchasing power adjusted, prices of millions of US dollars are actually possible within the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. You have to keep in mind that you cannot buy the same things like now for a few million US dollars. But I truly believe, keeping all of that in mind, it is possible. And I just wanted to know from you, Carl, do you think this is in the room of possibilities? Do you think it is a probable scenario, not probable?
You're correct that this is of course possible because of the US dollar being inflated. So if the Bitcoin price goes to 5 million in 5 years, then it's also possible that the gold price is 500,000 per ounce, that one Big Mac is $300, and so on, which just further proves that the US dollar is not a good way to measure value. And you mentioned Lebanon and Venezuela and these countries. When you look at the stock markets in these countries, it seems like they are roaring. It seems like they are in the biggest bull runs in history. But it's just fiat currency getting devalued, and so the stock market is simply in these countries. It's simply a consequence and a symptom of a bad monetary policy and a bad monetary system. And this is what we could see with the whole global economy very soon.
Yeah, and this is what I want you to take away from that, guys. If you want to measure the wealth and prosperity of a nation, don't look at the stock markets, because they are just jumping because of the currency printing. Look at things like the unemployment rate. Look at things like the GDP, the goods and services being provided and traded within a country. Then you can see that the GDP projection for the United States by the Federal Reserve of Alabama is actually minus 42%. This is unprecedentedly bad numbers. The economy is not doing well right now, and it's only a question of time that this translates into the prices. Let's wait and and see what happens. And as one ending point here, I wanted to tell everyone, if you want to do anything, you can look at Bitcoin priced in gold maybe. I will put you this chart here, you can check it out. I will leave the link in the description down below. And this might be in the future. So far it was because gold was so stable. It looks like the US dollar denomination, but in the future you could use that maybe when hyperinflation hits to measure the true value of Bitcoin, which is maybe compared to gold, right? So thank you so much for coming to the channel, guys. Everyone who wants to follow Carl, if you didn't already, I mean, what are you waiting for? The link is in the pinned comment down below. Click on that specific link and follow him. Click also the bell, also on our channel, of course. And yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for coming back to our channel, Carl. It was, as always, a blast. Do you have any last words to share before I wrap it up for today?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing episode. I think we had a lot of interesting content, and make sure to share this video, and let's do this again soon on my channel or your channel. I think this this gives a lot of value to people. Yep. I think having a conversation gives much more color to the contents. I also love watching collaborations, actually, podcasts and all these things. So
yeah, look at Joe Rogan. I mean, he has all these followers for a reason, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, guys, if you like that, if you want more of that, make sure you scroll down, you press this little like button, press subscribe and the bell to make sure that we are also getting notified that you want to see more of that. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see each other in the next one. And as always, guys, bye-bye.